help in activities for earning livelihoods through the use of RE. We have reasons to be hopeful in this regard. A CEW report, for example, reveals that enterprises using solar-powered sewing machines have on an average experienced an increase of 39% in their annual incomes. The progress in decentralized applications of RE would depend to a large extent on the development of new technologies, particularly those related to storage. Hydrogen technologies are one such example. The hydrogen mission that we intend to launch later this year would cover all areas where action might be needed to promote the use of hydrogen. As a beginning, we intend to make it obligatory for certain industries to use a specified proportion of green hydrogen in their total hydrogen requirements. This would create demand for green hydrogen and thus scale up its production. This scaling up would in turn lead to a reduction in green hydrogen prices. We have been actively engaging with industry to facilitate them to increase their share of RE. The response that we have received is overwhelming. We are acting on the suggestions and proposals that we have received in this regard, one of which is for making green power available to industry and others at a special green tariff. The response of industry to the call for energy compacts has also been encouraging. We have already received energy compacts from a number of industrial houses, including NTPC, Ultratech Cement, and JK Cement. I congratulate them on their commitments. Let me conclude at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Chaturvedi. And now we go on for the special address from His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur of the International Solar Alliance. Sir, if you take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Minister, Mr. R.K. Singh, Secretary Chaturvedi, Ambassador Tirumurti, and friends. Thank you very much for this opportunity because it brings together the key challenges that the world faces as well as the kinds of solutions that are emerging. We are all looking at a world in which everybody will have access to electricity, to reliable electricity, and to affordable electricity on the one hand. And on the other hand, there is access to clean cooking energy and to heating fuels, which are also cleaner as well as carbon neutral. As we move to the future, I think the years past tell a great story. Under the minister's leadership, today almost every home in India is connected to the grid. This is a huge achievement because not even, maybe 10 years ago, there were still 30% of households in India were not connected to the grid. Political commitment is at the heart of this decision making. Similarly, we see the huge growth in renewable energy. In India, we have electricity prices from solar as being the cheapest from all sources of energy, including fossil fuels. But alas, only when the sun is shining. It seems that next year or the year after that, 2022 or 2023, we may have access to round-the-clock electricity from renewables, which is the cheapest, or at least cost competitive with that from fossil fuels. I think it is worth visiting this particular paradigm. This has occurred because of the aggregation of demand and bulk procurement on the other hand. This has meant that prices of solar electricity have tumbled. At the same time, the prices that we are seeing for storage have also been declining. And a tender carried out by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energies company, the Solar Energy Corporation of India, last year yielded a price for round-the-clock electricity for using renewables and storage to be delivered next year to be cost competitive with fossil fuels. This is indeed a major achievement. At the same time, the hydrogen mission that the Secretary just mentioned is a big step forward because we will and can electrify a lot of applications. There is no doubt that urban transport can be electrified, and that would release a lot of petroleum fuels. Yet there are many applications, be it long distance transport, be it aviation, be it the petrochemical sector, the steel sector, and most importantly, the cement sector, where cost-effective zero carbon solutions are still not viable. While research is going on in all of these areas, I think it emphasizes the need for global technological cooperation, something that Ambassador Tirumurthy had mentioned when he started this meeting. The second thing is equally important. All of these efforts imply that we have got a lot more investment in the capital costs than in the operating costs. In a coal power station, approximately half of the price of coal power is the real-time cost of coal usage. On the other hand, in a solar or plant supply together with batteries, approximately 95% of the cost is the cost of the solar plants and the batteries alone. This means that the cost of capital is extremely important. And again, global cooperation in enabling these prices, this cost of capital, to be as low as possible would accelerate the transition to clean and green energy. As we look to the future, we do see that over a period of time, we move to a future which is largely based on renewable energy and on hydrogen. The speed of the transition depends on the global transition, global cooperation in both finance and in technology. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to our discussions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur, for those very, very interesting comments. And we will take that up, in fact, in our panel discussion, what you said in more depth. We have just been informed that Ms. Ogunbi is not able to join us for some pressing commitment that she has. We have with us her Chief of Staff, Ms. Tracy Crow, and I will request Ms. Crow to now kind of address the session on her Ms. Damilola Ogunbi's behalf. Welcome, Ms. Crow, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, distinguished participants. My name is Tracy Crow. I am the Senior Director and Chief of Staff for Sustainable Energy for All, and I am speaking on behalf of Damilola Ogunbi, the UN Secretary General, Special Representative for Sustainable Energy for All. She does send her deep apologies, but due to a very last-minute issue, she has been unable to join, and she did ask me to deliver remarks on her behalf. So thank you again for the opportunity to do this. On behalf of Damilola, I would like to express our great thanks, first of all, to Honorable Minister R.K. Singh for his leadership and friendship in this high-level dialogue process. India's energy transition has been nothing short of remarkable. To have advanced access to electricity to every village in the country, run the largest clean cooking program anywhere in the world, and to pursue renewable energy ambition of 450 gigawatts is really nothing short of exemplary. However, it is really your spirit of ambition that I want to truly congratulate. This session is titled Accelerating Citizen-Centric Energy Transition, and that's exactly the spirit of this high-level dialogue, to want to drive accelerated and ambitious actions towards SDG 7 while recognizing that people must be at the heart of the energy transition. Our aim has been to showcase the different energy transition pathways that all lead to our common goals of ending energy poverty by 2030 and accelerating the clean energy transition. The energy compact that India showcased yesterday is a strong step in the right direction. The balance between new innovation, be it on green hydrogen and bioenergy applications, and the scaling of proven technologies like solar and wind energy are a strong roadmap of India's leadership and an example for others to learn from and follow. It's also wonderful to see Dr. Ajay Mathur from the International Solar Alliance. You represent the interests of so many countries where the solar resource is abundant, but support is required to harness it to scale. The energy compacts offer a critical opportunity for these countries to make their intent clear and seek support from the global community to realize their ambitious goals. I'm also very pleased to note the extensive multi-stakeholder process that is currently underway in India and represented on this panel today on developing an interconnected, inclusive, and just energy transition. I'm also very pleased to see that our colleague from CEW here supporting this endeavor. This template of working together and bringing the expertise across different stakeholder groups together to drive action and impact is the exact spirit of the high-level dialogue on energy. So I would like to congratulate you once again from truly leading from the front. We look forward to receiving India's full energy compact soon, and I hope that you will share your learnings and your rich experience widely and be a champion for accelerated action on SDG 7 beyond your own borders. Again, thank you all for your time and your attention. We very much at SE for All and on behalf of Damalola look forward to working with you towards a strong future for people, planet, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crow. And on behalf of India, and I take the liberty of speaking on behalf of our permanent mission of the ministries that we have worked with. We have 11 ministries working with us. We have Honorable Minister representing us today. We've been a part of this process for the last four months in depth. We've worked on the reports, we've interacted with the teams, we've had e-consultations with our corporates, with our cities, with our states. It's been a very, very intense effort that we have been engaged in, and that has led to us already having certain corporate energy compacts come out. And we would like to congratulate you as well for creating such a platform that's brought together such a wide variety of stakeholders into this process. And thank you. And we look forward to continuing this up to September and then of course beyond to 2030. Thank you, Ms. Pro. And now we have a very special guest who is not here, but he has sent in a video message for us from France. And he's very, very fond of India, and he's a friend of any of us who's into the green transition, the energy transition. He's an Indophile. And I'm happy to present a video message from Mr. Stéphane Couzac, the French Ambassador for Climate Change Negotiations, Renewable Energies, and Climate Risk Prevention. We have the video ready. If that is there, I would request the team to please play that. Thank you.
Honourable Minister Singh, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, the relevance of discussing a citizen-centric energy transition is clear. In line with SDG 7, the energy transition must ensure universal access not only to sustainable, reliable modern energy services, but also ensure their affordability for all. So, how can we contribute to accelerate a just energy transition? First, by substantially increasing the share of renewable energies in the energy mix. France has committed to raise the share of renewable energy in its final energy consumption to 33% by 2030, on its way to reaching climate neutrality by 2050. India, for its part, has set itself the impressive goal of 450 gigawatts of newly installed renewable capacity by 2030. Electricity produced by renewable energies such as solar or wind is not only a healthier alternative for our environment, but it is also now cheaper than other fossil alternatives. Renewable energies can also enable decentralized energy access for off-grid rural communities. Second, France will continue to mobilize finance to accelerate the global transition towards clean energy. During the Climate Ambition Summit last December, President Macron announced that France would commit 6 billion euros a year in international climate finance. In this context, India remains the first partner of the French Development Agency. France is a great supporter of the International Solar Alliance, and I greet its Director General, Ajay Mathur. For ISA, we have just announced a financial contribution of 1 million euros for its STAR-C program, the Solar Technology Application Resource Center. This program provides capacity building and training on all aspects of solar energy development, because we believe in a citizen-centric transition that it must be about socio-economic development and job creation. The International Labour Organization and IRENA estimate that the photovoltaic sector alone could represent more than 11 million jobs by 2030. Third, It is essential that citizens be directly involved in mapping the pathway to a decarbonized future. In the past year, France conducted a Citizens' Climate Convention, whose deliberations resulted in a climate and resilience bill submitted to Parliament. This bill will strengthen our climate and clean energy policies by hastening the phasing out of energy-inefficient housing and high-emissions vehicles. The convention was an important step in our citizens' involvement in climate policies and helped strengthen our focus on just transition. Just transition is the indispensable to ensure that the benefits of a rapid transition towards clean energy be broadly and equitably shared and thus secure the overall success of our energy and climate policies. And finally, we're excited to work with India on how to develop electricity grids on a massive scale. The French utility company EDF is part of a consortium along with Terre Institute and France's Application Européenne de Technologie et de Services to develop OSOWOG, the One World, One Sun, One Grid, long-term vision and roadmap to interconnect renewable energy systems. In this crucial year for global action against climate change, France and India are showing the way together. We have joined forces through the Indo-French Year of the Environment to boost our bilateral cooperation throughout 2021 and are working together, including on energy, to unlock ambitious commitment in view of COP26. And so, to paraphrase OSOWOG's motto, the sun never sets, India and France's common ambition never sets. Thank you very much.
Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I'm Arunabha Ghosh. I'm the CEO of the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And it has been our privilege to collaborate with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy of the Government of India and the Permanent Mission of India to the United Nations in bringing this program to you. I would now like to share with you a story of India's citizen-centric energy transition. And Honorable Minister, with your permission, I would like to now showcase the book that India is launching on this occasion.
Please go ahead.
The photograph before you shows the Delhi Metro, which is a sustainable transport system, but it also draws power from one of the world's largest renewable energy.
Yes.
Its stations are powered by renewable energy, and it showcases how the energy transition is not just about renewables. It's not just about a solar panel. It is about integrating the cleaner energy systems into all walks of life. The book that we are launching today covers 26 different initiatives that Government of India and its partners have launched over the past decade and more. From electrification of every single village and hamlet in less than 1,000 days, to then connecting up each and every household with electricity, looking at a one nation, one grid, or a national smart grid mission, to this rollout of a renewable energy revolution through the National Solar Mission, its wind energy programs, hydropower, the National Biofuel Policy, and the most recently announced National Hydrogen Energy Mission, but also focusing on manufacturing through a performance-linked scheme. Energy efficiency schemes, clean cooking schemes, sustainable agriculture, industrial decarbonization, sustainable transport, climate smart cities, city gas distribution, cooling action, skilling, and of course, global initiatives. In this book, you will find the milestones in India's energy transition, all the way from when we first started thinking about hydrogen in 2005, the launch of our National Climate Action Plan in 2008, the National Solar Mission in 2010, the ramp up of our renewable energy ambitions in 2015, and then the rollout of electrification across thousands of villages and millions of households, and all the way up to now when we are launching the National Hydrogen Energy Mission. In each chapter, you will find the purpose and the speed and the scale at which these programs rolled out. What we have tried to highlight is that the citizen-centric energy transition is also not just about sustainability, it's about growth and investment, and it is also about jobs. That mantra of jobs, growth, and sustainability has driven each of these programs. For instance, the National Solar Mission, which will create hundreds of thousands of jobs as we roll out 450 gigawatts of renewables by 2030. The production-linked incentive scheme, which expects to create more than 120,000 indirect jobs and 30,000 direct jobs in creating the manufacturing base for rolling out India's energy transition. The energy efficiency schemes, which have deployed hundreds of millions of low-cost, efficient light bulbs, driving down the prices through government procurement. The Indian Railways, which very soon will become the first large railway system in the world that will have complete 100% electrification. A 10x increase in the pace of electrification in the Indian Railways since 2014. The first country in the world to bring out a national cooling action plan, driving an 11x growth in our cooling demand over the next 20 years, but also creating more than 400,000 direct and indirect jobs. The National Hydrogen Energy Mission, which will help to decarbonize not just electricity, but also transport and heavy industry. And then come the global initiatives. The International Solar Alliance that India and France have promoted now have 95 member countries that have signed on to its framework agreement, and 77 of whom who have submitted the instruments of ratification. The ISA expects to bring in $1 trillion of investment into the very regions where the sun shines the most. As we go through each of these stories, you will learn that India is accelerating its energy transition with a focus on its citizens through jobs, growth, and sustainability. We are also today very proud to launch a website, and we welcome all of you to join that, to come and visit that website, energytransition.in, from where you can download this ebook, look at the India story in more detail, learn about the energy compacts that our private and public sector enterprises have already been submitting. And through the course of the next few months, as we head up to the high-level dialogue on energy in September, you will get more and more information about how India is driving the energy transition at home and through the world as a global theme champion. Minister R.K. Singh, it now gives me great honor and privilege to welcome you to deliver the keynote address for this special occasion, because you have been at the core of driving many of these, not one, but many of these revolutions that India has gone through. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Arnava. Dr. Ajay Mathur, the Director General of the International Solar Alliance. Mr. T.S. Tirumurthy, our Ambassador and Permanent Representative to the United Nations. Mr. Indu Shekhar Chakravarti, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Mr. Stephen Crozat, the French Ambassador for Climate Change Negotiations, Renewable Energies, and Climate Risk Prevention. Mr. Arunabha Ghosh, the CEO, Council for Energy, Environment and Water. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here on this occasion of the launch of the book, which encapsulates the India story insofar as energy transition is concerned, or in fact, I will not call it energy transition alone. It is a transformation. What we have done in the past 6 years has been a transformation of the energy sector in our country. We ensured energy access in a time frame which nobody would have believed possible. When our government came to office, we had thousands and thousands of villages and hundreds of thousands of hamlets which were not connected with electricity. We were given a target by our Prime Minister of connecting every village and every hamlet in 1,000 days. We did it in 917 days. More than 18,000 villages and hundreds and thousands of hamlets. In fact, Arnav will share with you some of the photographs which we have. And these villages and these hamlets included villages and hamlets in the high Himalayas and in the deserts of Rajasthan, and how people had to carry poles and conductors on horseback, on mules, even by, on shoulders, because we reached hamlets where no road had reached. We reached villages where no road had reached in the Himalayan foothills of Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand and Arunachal Pradesh. But we connected every village and every hamlet. We did not leave out a single. And we did it in less than the time frame prescribed or laid down for us by our Prime Minister, which was 1,000 days. We did it in 13 days less. We connected 28 million homes. Then we decided to connect every home. And we connected 28 million homes in about 18 months, just 18 months. I mean, this was the largest expansion of access in the shortest time frame ever around the world. Now, all this, there was, behind all this, there was one thing in mind, and that was the people. This was done so that everybody could have access to energy. Now, in order to ensure this, that they also would be able to pay for the energy, we changed the structures. We introduced the prepaid system. A poor man perhaps will not be able to pay for 30 days of power consumption at one go, especially if his earning is daily or weekly. So we introduced the prepaid system so that a poor man can recharge his meter as many times as he wishes, or as many times as he has access to funds to light up his home. And if he misses a particular recharge and he does not have electricity for a day, the next day when he has money, he can recharge again and the light will come on. He does not get disconnected. That is the structure we brought in. The International Energy Agency called this the largest ever expansion of access in such a time frame. And in 2018, they called our connecting all the villages and hamlets was the biggest achievement in the power sector in 2018. Not only that, energy transition. Now, the subhead of accelerating today's topic says a special event on India's efforts to achieve the 2030 agenda. In fact, we have not only, we are going to cross the NDCs which we had set for ourselves. We had said that by 2030, 40% of our capacity will come from non-fossil fuel sources. Today, it's already at 38.5%. 37% is if you don't add nuclear. You add nuclear, it's 38.5%. And we, by 2030, I think it will not be 40%. It will be more in the region of 60-70%. We had said, and in fact, if you add, forget 2030, if you add the capacity under installation of solar, wind, and hydro, we are already at about 50%, near 50%. It's actually 48%. If you add the capacity under installation. And minus this hiccups because of COVID, I think we should be reaching, if we conquer COVID in about 6 months' time, then we should be reaching this 50% target, 48, 49%, 50% target in the next 2 years. So we are already beyond what we promised we'll achieve in 2030. We had said that our emissions, the emission intensity of our economy will bring down by 33% by 2030. We carried out an assessment, a complete measurement in in 2016, and we had already reached 24%. Another assessment is being carried out now. And I think that will be near about 29-30%. So again, that also we shall cross. Renewable energy, we have emerged as the most attractive destination for investments. In the past 6 years, we have received investments of $70 billion. We have almost multiplied our renewable energy capacity minus hydro by about 3 times. And our solar energy capacity has gone up by 15.5 times. During this period, the last month, the contribution of non-fossil fuels in energy terms has reached about 33% already. So we are a world leader in energy transition. Now, how has that been possible? Now, that was possible again. One, of course, was the political commitment. And the other was a very transparent system. Number one, we trained our people. We have an ongoing training program. We call them Surya Mitras, to train people to install capacities. And then we put in place a system which is totally transparent, and we have open bids in which every fund, every global fund is invested through some company or the other, and every bid is hotly contested. And therefore, we have not had to actually put in any capital from our own exchequer. I mean, people come and set up the capacity, just make sure that they get paid. Not only renewable energy. And in renewable energy, I mean, before I come to the other sector, which is energy efficiency, where again we have done something which is actually, I would say, almost awe-inspiring. But to continue with the renewable energy story, we have some of the largest renewable energy parks in the world, largest solar parks in the world. And we have more such record solar parks and renewable energy parks coming up. We have a program for encouraging storage. In fact, to bring down the price of storage, we are already having bids with storage added. So we already had a successful bid for peaking time renewable energy. We have had a successful bid for round-the-clock renewable energy. We are going to have more bids for round-the-clock renewable energy, which means solar, wind, hydro plus storage. We have already about 4,800 megawatts of pumped hydro capacity and another 1,500 megawatts of pumped hydro capacity under construction. And we have carried out a survey. We have a capacity, a possible capacity of 96 gigawatts of pumped hydro. And we aim to explore and sort of exploit all of it. Our hydro capacity also we are expanding. We already have about 46 gigawatts of hydro capacity. We have another 12 gigawatts of hydro capacity under construction. And we are going to add to that, because hydro is something which is absolutely essential. If you are adding the huge quantities of renewable energy, which is infirm in nature, you need hydropower, you need pumped hydro. So we are adding that because we want a clean powered system, powered by balanced by hydro and green storage. So storage, we have also a scheme, a PLI scheme, production linked incentive scheme, for about 18,000 crores for setting up battery manufacturing here. And many companies have committed to start setting up battery, the lithium-ion battery manufacturing here. We want, because our consumption is going to be huge. We have a program, like you heard, we have a program on hydrogen. In the next 4 or 5 months before December, we plan to conclude a bid for at least, for green hydrogen, which should be able, which we should be able to make by at least 2,500 megawatts of solar, wind, hydro. So that bid we plan to have by December. And in order to make sure that the green hydrogen made in India will be slightly more expensive than the gray hydrogen being used currently by the fertilizer industry as well as by the petroleum industry. So we have discussed with these ministries, and we have said that we are going to impose a green hydrogen purchase obligation. So that will be a trajectory. In the beginning, for example, we'll begin with, let's say, 5%. in the first year. That means 5% of whatever hydrogen they consume has to be made in India, green hydrogen, totally green. The next year it will go up to, let's say, 7%. The year after it will go to 10 up to 10%. Then similarly, we will also be enriching the piped gas with hydrogen so that its calorific value goes up, and our imports of gas come down. We are going to introduce green hydrogen also in mobility, especially long distance mobility. That is another thing which we have. Yesterday, I had a discussion with the CEO of one of our largest companies, Reliance. Now they have promised to invest in electrolyzers. Now that is something which we want, electrolyzers. So they have promised to set up a huge electrolyzer manufacturing plant. They have also promised to invest in lithium-ion batteries. And they've also promised to go in for green hydrogen. So basically, now that I started talking about corporates, let's talk about corporates. Now in RE 100, there are 60 Indian companies. Those who have pledged that they will switch over entirely to green energy. Now, in order to facilitate that, we are coming out with something called Green Tech. The distribution companies will procure green power only for companies who want to go totally green. And the distribution companies, DISCOMs, will supply green power to them at the average, weighted average of the prices, the procurement prices for green energy. That is one benefit, that is one option for these industries who want to go green. The second option which we are giving for these industries is that they can get open access. The open access permission will be given within 15 days. The rules will be out, about 20-25 days, the rules will be out. It's under vetting. So if they want to buy green energy directly from a developer, they'll get the permission within 15 days. And if they want to set up capacity themselves, they will not need anybody's permission to set up capacity themselves, provided whatever capacity they set up, they consume of the green energy. So we are going to open 3 doors for all these companies who want to go green. So 60 companies have already signed up. More and more companies will sign up, and we will have more and more companies going totally green. This I think indicates the movement which people have, the belief which people have in environment. In India, we are able to do this because we believe that our environment is important. That's a commitment which our government has, which our government feels, irrespective of what the rest of the world is doing. Now, coming to, before I leave renewables and go to energy efficiency, where again, our achievements have been remarkable, I'll add a couple of more things. One is agriculture. Now we have a target, and we have already started, of solarizing every irrigation pump in our country. Now you'll be surprised to learn when we launched Kusum that this is only the second year. Now, up till now, we have a target. We have funds for about funding the solarization of 9 lakh pumps, near about 1 million pumps. We already have applications for 31 million pumps. I have 31 lakh pumps already. So basically, that's the demand which is there. And we aim to solarize every, we aim to, number one, have separate agriculture grids. We had provided 15,000 crores for that under our earlier scheme, the Din Dayal Gram Jyoti Yojana. And we are providing 20,000 crores under the new scheme for separate agriculture grids. And we are going to solarize each of these grids, which will result in green power at lower prices, virtually nil prices to the farmer. And it will also reduce the burden of subsidy which the state governments presently bear. The subsidies will not be required. So this is something which is beneficial to the state government. This is something which is beneficial to the farmer. And this is something which is beneficial to the environment. Coming to energy efficiency. Now there again, our initiatives have been path-breaking. We have a program for energy efficiency in the industries, the large industries. Now in the only the results have come out for the first cycle and the second cycle. We've already had energy savings of 23 million tons of oil equivalent and emissions reductions of 120 million tons of CO2 per annum. We have a standards and labeling program. You know, you have 5-star rated refrigerators, air conditioners, etc. So we have a star rating program where we rate equipment appliances on energy efficiency. The lowest efficiency being star rated at 1 and the most efficient star rated at 5. And the lowest efficiency, the star rated at 1, that is phased out compulsorily in the next year. That means if your star rating is 1, you are going to close down the production line next year. So that way, now this program, we have saved emissions or reduced emissions of CO2 by 46.2 million tons of CO2 per annum. We've already saved by this standards and labeling program. And this standards and labeling program is being expanded. We have the largest program in the world for LED. You know, in the public, through the public and the private sector, we have a figure of 1,006. We track this. We have a figure of 1,634 million bulbs and tube lights replaced by LED. Now, what this has resulted in is a saving of 209 billion units of electricity every year, leading to a reduction of CO2 emissions of 171 million tons per annum. 171 million tons of CO2 emissions per annum. So then apart from that, we have an energy conservation building code for commercial buildings, which has been adopted by 18 states already. We have an energy conservation building code for domestic buildings. And now we have also started introducing efficiency standards for small and medium industry. And we have already taken up about 48 clusters in the first round. Now, in all told, energy efficiency and our renewable energy push, all told, it is no surprise that we are the only major economy. In fact, we are the only G20 country whose actions, mind you, not whose plans, whose actions are consonant with a sub 2 degrees, yani below 2 degree rise in global temperature. The only G20 country, or the only major economy. Other people are talking, we've done it, already done it. But we have not stopped as yet. We have not come to a conclusion. As I said, for our government, this is an article of faith. Environment is an article of faith. Our emissions, per capita emissions are just 60% of the world average, mind you, and the world average includes Africa. And our per capita emissions are only 60% of that. There are countries, developed countries, whose per capita emissions are 6 times, 7 times, 9 times the world average. Now, when I hear pledges, and this is something which I have had occasion to refer to earlier in other conferences like this. Now, when I hear pledges that the countries have pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050. Now, I frankly say that's a pie in the sky. It doesn't mean anything. It is meaningless, utterly meaningless. Tell us as to when are you going to come down, to bring your emissions down to the world average, from 6 times the world average to world average. When are you going to bring your emissions down? You see, the position is this, and this is something which you have to understand and which we have to speak about if we are concerned about the world. As far as we are concerned, we are concerned about our country and we're already doing it. But if we are concerned about what's happening in the world, because it's one planet, and if the planet sinks, we go down with that, notwithstanding what we have done. So we are also concerned about the planet, the larger question. Now, 67 to 75%, depending on what measure standards you use, of the carbon space, available carbon space, if your target is a sub 2 degree rise, has already been occupied by the developed countries already. leaving very little space for the developing countries. Now, if they continue to spew CO2 gases and other such things at the same speed, the remaining space will be occupied by maximum 2045. In fact, the estimate is by 2040, the remaining 33%, if you take one measure of 67%, have been occupied, leaving no carbon space at all by these developed countries. So you are already occupying the entire carbon space available for a 2-degree rise in temperature by 2040 or maximum, let's say 2045. Then, if you say that you are going to, become carbon neutral by 2050, sorry, no, thank you. Because you have already occupied all the available carbon space. Now the world needs to stand up and say this. That it's just not enough. Tell us that in the next 5 years, you are going to cut your emissions down by what, 33% or 50%? Tell us that. The time is running out. As I said, this is the carbon space available. And if we are not going to sort of, talk meaningless things like that, we need to get down to brass tacks. We are doing it. We are doing it. As I said, we will continue doing it. We'll continue doing it because our government, led by Prime Minister Modi, believes in the environment, and we believe that environment is important. So we are setting targets for ourselves, suo moto. The people are with us. The states are with us. And, the investments are coming. We make sure that the structures are such. In the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we have set up a body for dispute resolution. We have set up another body for facilitating those who are coming and investing here in renewable energy. Any problem, we are there to solve. Any problem. That we believe to be our job. So when people come and invest money, we are there with them to make sure that all the problems are taken care of, to make sure that their payments come on time. And that commitment, I promise, will continue. Now, what this has resulted in is, number one, our universal access. Now, our universal access would not have been possible without renewable energy, because there are many hamlets, even today, in the remote Himalayas, where getting the grid is still difficult. We are taking it because we want uninterrupted energy. But we reached electricity to them through renewables, through solar. This enabled us. So renewable is important. Renewable has brought the prices of electricity down and is going to bring the prices of electricity down further. So it makes it more affordable. And therefore, more and more people can consume more and more energy, and it's clean energy. We want to electrify our economy and green our electricity. We want to, electrify our mobility. We want to increasingly electrify our industry. That is our target. We want to electrify our cooking. Incidentally, for reducing our carbon emissions, we distributed 80 million gas connections, 83 million actually gas connections, giving a gas connection to every home. Now, all these efforts, we added our power generation capacity. We were deficit. Before our government came to power in 2014, India was power deficit. We added 139,000 megawatts in just about 4 years, 4.5 years, 5 years. And we made our country power surplus. Today, we export power to our neighboring countries. Now, all this has resulted, for example, in something which is, mind-boggling. The kerosene consumption was 894 crore liters per annum. Now, that in million tons, 892 crore liters per annum, which, in terms of millions is 8,920 million. We brought it down by 77%. Today's kerosene consumption is just 23% of what it was in 2014. We brought it down to just from 8,920 million tons. We brought it down to just about 294 crores. 204 crores. That's it. liters, 23% of what it was. And basically this all will also come down to near zero, because lighting we have provided. Cooking, again, we have provided gas with lower emissions. And we propose to replace gas also, because gas also has some carbon, with electricity, green electricity. So each sector we want to electrify, and electricity we want to green. And it has other benefits for us as well. And that is that, currently we are hugely dependent on imported fossil fuels. We want to reduce that dependence. So this has going towards renewables has other benefits for us as well, apart from the environment. But it's not only this. We are increasing our forest cover. We are one of the few countries which is increasing our forest cover to provide more and more things. So that is the level of our commitment. Thank you. I believe we are dealing with a problem which is actually serious. Apart from COVID, the problem of environment is actually serious. And it's actually a global problem. It's not an India problem. If it were an India problem, we've already halfway to solving it. It's a global problem. And I think we need to prevail upon these countries who are, spewing CO2 at 6 times, 7 times, 9 times the world average, to bring it down. And we have got to prevail on these countries to contribute. It was promised that they'll give $100 billion a year. I mean, nothing is coming. We don't need the money. As I said, we don't need the money. Thank you. I mean, we are okay. It's the countries in Africa who need the money. You ask the Director General of International Solar Alliance, he'll tell you. He's taken up projects in Africa. And no investment is coming because the risk profile is high. There's a country risk, there is some other risk. So nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to invest money there. They need the money. They need risk insurance. Now, this $100 billion a year has to go there so that you have 800 million people without access. Let's not just pay lip service to this, which the countries are doing. And, people talk about it, the year in which the COP is going to be held. And then after that, people sort of feel happy that, yes, there is a pledge that by 2050, they'll become net zero, not realizing that it means nothing. It's our job to tell the people that it means nothing if we want to actually do something for the world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. In that expansive presentation, I took away 2 key themes: vision and dynamism. It's one thing to have vision, but if that vision is not executed, it just remains a dream. But the dynamism part, sir, is that our energy transition hasn't stopped. And so many things that we've highlighted is not just about the past, but about what's coming in the future.
Yes.
So ladies and gentlemen, watch this space, because India is going through an energy transformation, as the Honorable Minister mentioned.
Yes.
I want to take this opportunity to thank all our honored plenary guests for your very rich and inspiring contributions. And I will now use this opportunity to transition to the panel discussion. But before I do that, I do once again request all of you to go to energytransition.in and download that ebook, because there's one thing I did not mention. On that book, we have a motif of a wheel, and that wheel comes from the Sun Temple of Konark in our state of Odisha, an 800-year-old temple dedicated to the sun god. But that wheel also demonstrates and signifies that dynamism, that move towards a cleaner energy pathway that India is showcasing for itself and the world. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, plenary guests. I'm very grateful. May I now request our panelists to kindly switch on your videos, which will give me an opportunity to also introduce you and bring you into a conversation. It is late in the evening here in India, but there are still several hundred people watching this on various platforms via Zoom, Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms. So they want to hear from those who are executing that very vision. Today we have Mr. Gurdeep Singh with us, the Chairman and Managing Director of NTPC, the largest utility in India. Ms. Meher Padamji, the Chairperson of Thermax Limited. Mr. Sumant Sinha, the Chairman and Managing Director of Renew Power, one of India's largest renewable energy companies. Mr. Chris Rowe, who's the Head of Global Sustainability Operations for Amazon. Mr. Venu Nuguri, Managing Director and CEO of India and South Asia for Hitachi ABB Power Grids. And last but not the least, Mr. A.C.K. Nair, who's the Director of the Cochin International Airport. As our book is showcasing, the energy revolution that India is going through is about renewables, it's about energy efficiency, it is about operations and logistics, it is about transportation, it is about the grid. And we want to bring that story to you through this panel discussion. I realize that we are a little bit behind schedule. So with the permission of the panelists, I will seek your indulgence to extend this panel by about 10 to 15 minutes, which will give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the issues we want to talk about. So let me dive straight in, and I'm going to come to you, Mr. Gurdeep Singh, first. As the dominant player in the Indian electricity sector, what, according to you, is the single biggest transformation that is underway? That long list of things that are happening, what, according to you, is the biggest transformation?
Thank you, Arunabha. I think the dominant player probably I would not accept. Dominant player means something which really at the cost of somebody else. So we are the largest player, I accept. And as the largest player, largest generator in the company, in fact, till now, we have the responsibility that each and every citizen of this country gets reliable and affordable power. And going forward, we have already discussed, as we go along, the now accessibility has been given to all houses. Now the challenge is how to make the grid greener. And during that transition, how we will make sure that it is without any disturbance, without any kind of disturbance in the supply side, while making sure that we transit towards the cleaner energy sources and we integrate those the cleaner energy sources as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and without causing any trouble. And we as a company are playing a very important role, which many people will not be aware, that our coal-based plants, which were designed for the base load, are now being called as balancing power. And so be it, because this is the requirement for the grid, and we are doing it, and we have really, and our operation engineers are putting their best efforts so that the continuous power is available, and that too also at a complete reliable as well as much efficient as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for your very sharp answer. So let me turn directly to Ms. Meher Padamji. This issue that both Mr. Singh mentioned as well as Minister Singh mentioned, that connecting households, energy access, raises the question, Ms. Padamji, about energy efficiency. Because once I start using electricity, how efficiently I use it matters to my household, my bills, but to the ecosystem, the energy system overall. Energy efficiency has played a very important role, but how can India make energy efficiency a critical lever now, not just for homes and appliances, but even for factories?
Thanks, Arunabha. Maybe I'll just touch upon one or two in each of the three that you asked for: industry, homes, as well as appliances. So starting with industry, we all know that the Bureau of Energy Efficiency had set 14 industrial sectors coming under the PAC scheme. That's the Perform, Achieve, Trade scheme. I think that's been pretty successful. Now, how do we extend this to many, many more industries coming in? I think that would be number one. Number two, for industry, can the government come in and incentivize, especially when payback periods are high with new technologies coming in? And I'm talking about incentivization, not with regard to money, but it could be with regard to higher depreciation. being provided to industry. So I would say these two for industry. Coming to homes, maybe a single window clearance or some sort of tax incentive for developers that use the energy efficiency code for residential buildings. I think that would be very, very helpful indeed. Or even promoting the manufacture of low carbon building materials. And I never realized, but apparently bricks are one of the highest guzzlers of coal in the country. I didn't realize that. And coming to appliances, like the Honorable Minister mentioned, we have the standard and labeling program, which has done a great job. Here also we have many items, I think 10 appliances that have been taken mandatorily and many other voluntarily. But if we can again bring in many, many more into the fray, it would be helpful. And ACs are a huge guzzler. So again, enhancing the energy efficiency over there could be something that would be helpful. And last I would say, providing some sort of innovative financing models along with technology, I think would be very helpful.
Thank you, Meher. First of all, a lot of the policy ideas you've laid out would be relevant not just for India, but for many other developing and emerging economies. But your last statement takes me straight to Mr. Sumant Sinha. This innovative financing. Mr. Sinha, you've been remarkably successful, not just now, but for a long time in raising capital to accelerate that renewable energy deployment in India through Renew Power. Now, when you look at all of these other aspects of the energy transition, whether it's renewables, energy efficiency, green hydrogen, a slew of things that are happening, what do you think India and other developing countries need to do to attract more capital at lower cost, faster, to be able to accelerate the transition?
Yeah, thank you, Arnaba, so much for inviting me as well. It's what we require to attract more capital is nothing different from what we've been doing for many years already. First of all, I think India has this great advantage of being a massive market, and it's a dynamic market, as you mentioned earlier. It's a vibrant market, and we have a government that has so far been extremely focused about creating the future rapidly and setting ambitious targets. And so I think for any future capital provider, that market size, that opportunity, coupled with a fairly proactive government, is in some ways step one, and a very, very important step one. If you don't cross that step one, then in fact, capital would not be coming in. So I think that is a very important aspect structurally that India has been able to achieve. The large market, policy, proactivity, I think that is very critical. The second thing is, of course, that as we dive into the minutiae of policy making, predictability of policy making, stability of policy making, and visibility about future policies that might come in, all of those are very critical as well. And I think that's again where the government so far has been doing a fairly good job, and that is why you've seen the huge amount of interest that is coming into India right now. I would also a little bit differentiate between the equity side and the debt side. On the equity side, you have a lot of investors that are willing to come in. On the debt side, however, we need a little bit more work to be done. We have, of course, a couple of government-owned institutions that are lending actively to the sector. Unfortunately, India's private banks and public banks are not lending as actively. And of course, they are driven by not just investing in renewable energy or in the energy transition area, but obviously they're impelled more by their overall credit situation and overall economic situation and so on. But I think that's one part of the market that needs to be lending more to the sector. And the other part that I think needs to come into the lending side is really our ability to raise more capital from overseas on the debt side through international bond issuances. And I think there we have, through the RBI and so on, certain policies which I think could be relooked at if we want to attract more capital from the overseas bond markets into India. That would then alleviate some of the pressures on the Indian banking system as well. So I think the overall macro is looking very good. I think on some of the sort of the intricate policy issues, especially on the debt side, perhaps some relaxation could happen that could make it easier for us to raise the billions and billions and the tens of billions of dollars that we need to raise for our sector.
Fair enough. And I'll come to some of those micro initiatives at a company level when I come back in the second round of questions. Let me turn to Mr. Chris Rowe. I'll talk to you about Amazon later, but first let me ask you about your views of the logistics industry overall. You know, the logistics and servicing industry will be a major driver of not just growth, but also jobs. Very employment intensive, and therefore very exciting opportunity. But also it has literally a very big footprint. So what do you think are the greatest opportunities for sustainability in the sector?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this event. It's an honor for Amazon to be represented here. With regards to logistics and sustainability, I would split up into two things we're doing right now to make needle-moving kind of changes to our carbonization and the logistics, mostly in fleet electrification. In 2019, we ordered 100,000 electric delivery vehicles from US automaker Rivian, and have continued similar partnerships in the EU with Mercedes-Benz, and even in India with Mahindra Electric. And we are really excited to announce that we've had over 20 million customer packages delivered to date by electric vehicles, and we're really excited to see that number grow. And in fact, in India in particular, we're looking to launch 10,000 electric delivery vehicles by 2025. So a lot of work is happening right now to ensure that our fleets are becoming more and more electric, and as referenced earlier, powered by renewable energy. There's things also, though, that in the logistics footprint that are really difficult to decarbonize. So we need to test, we need to pilot, we need to invest today as well. And so we've announced a $2 billion climate pledge fund that's aimed at backing visionary companies whose products and services we believe will accelerate this transition to a low carbon logistics and overall economy. To date, since the fund was announced last year, we've had 8 company investments, 3 of which in the logistics sector around aviation, a very difficult part of the logistics footprint to decarbonize. So looking toward hydrogen opportunities, even electric planes, and thinking about different ways that we can improve. But that takes time, and it's going to take investments. And so that's why these funds and getting involved now in longer term lead items are really critical to move sustainability within the logistics space.
Excellent. Again, I'll come to you for more specifics on Amazon's plans. But let me turn to Mr. Naguri. Sir, when we look at these vast deployments of renewable energy across the country, it's no good to have a mirror in the desert if it's not connected to where the demand center lies. And that's where grids come in. So how do you see the power transmission business contributing to India's sustainable economic progress? Because the Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Renewable Energy, also talked a lot about the distributed energy dimension as well. So how do you see the grid connected business evolving as we go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Arnaba, having me in this show. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. And in our view, the grid is at the center of energy transition. With India is expected to add 800 plus gigawatt by 2030. Out of that, 450 gigawatt coming from renewable. It's a huge step change, huge transformation. As Minister has put it, it is not energy transition, but it's an energy transformation taking place in that. So in our view, that it's a 3 dimensions taking place in that. One is with the government of India's active support. The power sector today is making a possible, reliable, and affordable power for millions, regardless of distance and location, through latest state-of-the-art technology. That's where we come in, bringing our technology like a high voltage DC current technology, bringing thousands of kilometers generated energy to the load centers in that. These technologies reduce space demand and energy losses by nearly half. And the power sector is already playing a key role in assisting governments of India's mission for 100% rail electrification, making Indian Railways a net zero carbon emitter by 2030 through intelligent and enabling power technologies in that. And the third, which is also very, very important point, it's also a prime enabler of e-mobility. Government of India's aim to achieve 30% EV penetration is supported by the grid. An EV electrical vehicle is only as green as the grid it is plugged into in that. So it's extremely important. On top of this is the digitalization of whole energy value chain, right from the generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption standpoint in that. So with so much of renewable penetrating, it's important to know that flow of the electrons, as it's becoming a more and more complex network, several feeding points, several takeoff points, and flow of the electrons is extremely important in looking at the optimizing the whole value chain for better user experience and better grid operator standpoint and whole ecosystems in the power sector.
Fair enough. Every electron not used is an electron wasted. But again, we'll come to, in the next round, I'll come to more about, how do we integrate these different dimensions of energy generation, maybe mobility, maybe cooling, and so forth. But before that, let's turn to aviation. Mr. Nair, you're leading the Cochin International Airport, and I'll talk to you about Cochin's particular example in a bit. But first, let's talk about the aviation sector. India, notwithstanding the pandemic, still has a booming aviation sector, one of the fastest growing in the world. And yet there is concern about the role of aviation industry's kind of footprint in driving up emissions. So how do we balance this growing demand for air travel with the need to reduce emissions?
Thank you, Arnava. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present in this August gathering. See, I think as you rightly mentioned, the civil aviation in India is the fastest growing industry. And it is going to be, Indian domestic aviation market is going to be the world's largest, third largest industry comparing to any other countries. And we know that in the financial year 2020 itself, the traffic in India is almost 340 million. And the CAGR, if you are taking from 16 to 20, it is almost 11.13% increase. But in all this case, and moreover, the number of airlines, aircraft in India is going to be increased manifold and expected to be by 1,100 by around 2027. And the airports are going to be increased from the present operating 153 airport. It is going to be around 190 to 200 by 2040. So these are the growth happening in aviation. But the pertinent point is that how we will reduce the emission. That is very important. So first of all, we have to reduce the flying time of aircraft in the air. That is one of the main aspects onto that. For that, there are key factors which is to be considered onto that. One is efficient air navigation route and air navigation equipments, so that the flying time from one airport to other airport has to be very optimal, so that it will not be the burning more fuel for reaching that particular time. And moreover, the terminals should be more efficient, and the taxi lines have to be more systematic, so that no taxiing for reaching to the terminal. Just like in some congested airport, we have to, aircraft has to be moving from, when the aircraft is moving from ground or air, it is making carbon emissions. So these are one of the aspects. That means minimize the air, the engine switching on either in the air or in the ground. For that, the efficient design of the airport and air navigation routes is one that point. Second is the design the green airports. So green airport means that when the airport infrastructure is created itself, how much green initiatives can be incorporated into that. That means if you are energy efficient, as Minister was telling, energy efficient lighting system, energy efficient air conditioning system. So these aspects has to be brought on. Moreover, just like we adopted a model that maximum renewable energy can be produced for using their power for that airport. So that is a green airport, maximum green airport is concerned. And third is when the aircraft is reaching to the terminal or reaching to the parking bay, the engine has to be shut down and use green energy equipments for supporting the airline, that air conditioning units and power, the power units and all, these and all, so that engine emission in the air has to be maximum to be reduced. And fourth point is that we use modern ground handling equipments which will not reduce the use of fossil fuel in the ground handling equipments, and EV type, that way electrical vehicles or other the green energy equipments have to be. But these are we are adopting. Even most of the airports are adopting this. So India is taking a lead into that also. And the fifth is that more fuel efficient technologies for using in the aviation. That is engines, high efficient engines are, that is all now adopting. So India is almost moving into that in the transition point also.
Excellent set of ideas. Now let's get into one more round of questions before we close this panel, where I will ask each one of you a little bit more in detail about your respective companies and your plans. And I want to first start with Sumant Sinha. Sumant, in your book, Fossil Free, if I may take the liberty of citing a sentence, you say once, and I quote, once companies in India are successful, they could look to branch out in other markets, unquote. So as one of the largest renewable energy companies in India, my question is in two parts. What is Renew Power's plans for growth of applying renewable energy to other sectors within the Indian kind of economy? And then what's your plan of taking your ideas, lessons, business models, innovations outside India?
Yeah, Arunabha, thank you. Those are excellent questions and questions that we ask ourselves all the time. And the reason is the following, that, you know, the Indian market, and just to answer the second part of your question first, the Indian market is growing so rapidly and has such attractive investment opportunities that you always wonder whether you should continue to focus only on India because of the opportunities here, or should one take the expertise that one has developed now in India and try to apply them to other geographies. And there is no, as you know, there is no right or wrong answer in any of these things. Perhaps a time will come in the near future when that time becomes appropriate for us to look at markets outside of India. When that might be, it's hard for me to say right now. At this point, I would say that our focus is entirely on making sure that we continue to, develop our business here, continue to service the requirements of the country, and do as much as we can. The second question that you asked was, or the first question rather that you asked was about how do we take renewable energy into more areas? And I think, you know, renewable energy is actually in some ways renewable electricity, because we've really only been using renewable energy in the electricity sector so far. But I think now with the broadening of electrification in the energy sector broadly, I think renewables will play a broader role in the energy sector as a whole. And I think that is where developments around hydrogen, for example, we know are going to be a very clear area in that respect. And the development of technologies such as electric vehicles and so on will hopefully allow us to start getting renewables into mobility as well. Hopefully, eventually into the aviation sector, although, you know, whether it's through some sort of other technology that still has to be developed will remain to be seen. So I think that there will be this broadening out over time as new technologies get developed. And hopefully that will continue to increase and create more demand for renewables. And all of that, therefore, will feed into hopefully our business opportunity going forward.
Thank you, Sumant. So let me turn to you, Meher. Then, you know, like Sumant, you also have had your experience not.
Arunabha, we can't hear you. Sorry.
Can you hear me? Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it says my internet connection is unstable. I hope you can hear me now. So I was saying that you've also had experience in turning around companies outside India as well. So when we look at this, this imperative of energy efficiency, and energy efficiency is often called the first fuel before everything else. You listed out a number of, you know, ways in which policy could drive. But tell us from the perspective of Thermax, which is a leading engineering company dealing with heating, cooling, water, waste management. How are you looking to bend the emissions curve for yourself and at the company level, but also an allied sector in the sectors that you're operating?
Thanks, Arunava. So we are constantly looking at ways, first of all, to enhance our energy efficiency. So whether it's in boilers, so how do we reduce the stack temperature? Or whether it's in our chillers, we have a very unique product known as vapor absorption cooling, which uses waste heat to produce cooling. And so moving from a single effect to a double effect, and now we've come out with a triple effect chiller. So it's just constantly raising that bar. Then also looking at waste heat. How do we look at waste heat and convert it into something of value? So these are the areas that we're constantly looking to improve. As a company, about 10 years ago, 40% of our turnover was in green energy or green products, green and clean products. Today, after 10 years, about 70% of our company is producing green and clean products. So we've also moved into many new sectors where we are using the waste heat from the exhaust of a bus, a long distance travel bus, and converting it into cooling, or using compressed biogas. How do we manufacture compressed biogas? So we're looking at many new areas going further. We're also partnering with a number of MNCs to couple with them on their decarbonization agenda. So how do we look at retrofitting, moving from fossil to a decarbonized agenda? And I just want to give one example when I talked of our vapor absorption chillers. It's quite unique applications that we use with this product. So say, for example, potato chip frying. Okay, now there are vapors that come out of potato chip frying. Now those vapors normally would just be wasted. So it would be waste vapors. But we actually use this low intensity heat or low temperature heat, and we put it through a vapor absorption chiller, and we produce cooling to air condition the plant, the production plant. So you're actually getting energy for free. So these are the kind of unique applications that we look at. And so those are the kind of things that we're looking at to enhance our product basket.
In fact, Mayor, it's not just for Thermax, but if you look at India's vast MSME sector, 63 million micro, small, medium enterprises, waste heat recovery is one of the lowest hanging fruits. And if only the companies had a little bit more awareness and then access to technologies like yours, it could fundamentally transform the backbone of India's industrial sector. But talking about applications, let me turn to again you, Mr. Gurdeep Singh. The advantage of being, you didn't want to like the term dominant, but the advantage of being a big player is that you can take big bets. So what are NTPC's plans for transition to a low carbon future? You've submitted your energy compact. So please elaborate on that. And while you're doing that, several questions have also come up from the audience about applications of green hydrogen. So if you could reflect on that as well, Mr. Singh.
Thank you. So just to give some kind of figure, we supply almost 1/4 of the electricity to the nation. And predominantly that is coming from the fossil fuel, that is namely coal. And as mentioned that going forward, we'll have to look at that how constantly and how fast we can really transit towards the cleaner source of energy. And in that direction, we have been taking very aggressive steps, as you would be just picking up from the media and other places, that we are aggressively pushing the renewables. And at present, we are having only 1.36 gigawatt of renewable energy, except the hydro. And another 6.7 gigawatt we supply to the DISCOMs, which is through the NSM, National Solar Mission. Going forward by 2030, we aim to reach to almost 60 gigawatt of renewable energy. That is, by any means, it's going to be very, very huge. So almost today, that about 7% percent of the renewable energy, we should be going towards something like 50-50%. And that will be throwing a lot of challenge. As I said, in your single largest point, what you asked me in the first one. So now the point is that how we can still maintain the grid very stable. And this cannot be done without getting into the storage. So whether it is going to be battery, whether it's going to be the pump hydro or pump storage, or whether it is going to be mainly going towards the hydrogen. And as of today, let me just share with you that the unique thing what we are doing is something which will be interest of to many, that we are looking at how we can increase the share of the biomass in the coal-fired plants, so that we can make the coal-fired plants as green. And along with that, our R&D is working on the what we call it Netra, our R&D wing. They are working at present the pilot project which is under implementation at present, how we can work on the carbon capture and the green hydrogen, and then trying to convert that into hydrocarbon, whether it's a methanol or ethanol or then some other parts. Right. So this is, we as a company, we don't want to remain as a want to be known as a coal-based company, but we are going to be integrated energy company, not only electricity company. And in that, whether it is going to be the mobility, as you will be knowing that we are already having almost 40 buses in Andaman Nicobar, EVs, which are at present, and we have started, and we are looking at now Bangalore and other cities. So whether it will be mobility and whether we can have the NTPC, maybe soon you can find that NTPC is National Transport, Power and Chemicals. So it has to be a very, very interesting transition as we go forward. It's going to be taking a lot of efforts, and we are sure that with the competence of our engineers and we source the technology wherever it is available, we should be in a position to really contributing towards the transition in a very, very significant way. The use of the green hydrogen, which you asked, we had been telling almost for more than now 1.5 years that we don't want to look at this gray hydrogen or the blue hydrogen. It has to be only and only green. And at present, what we are developing, one ultra mega renewable energy park in Kutch, our discussions are going on whether we should really convert that into electricity or whether we should convert something there itself. And then tomorrow, if at all it really makes sense, whether we can go towards the offshore wind and how we can really try. We have already and have discussion with the ONGC, who are very, 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 I think the expertise in the operating in the offshore, which we will be only in the kind of electricity, but they will be having this. So I can go on many steps which are going on at present, but it is going to be quite an interesting journey in the, as we go on reducing or maybe converting some of the coal-based plants to the biomass and do the carbon capture and bring the hydrogen, green hydrogen, and try to make India Atmanirbhar in energy source. So that's what our aim is.
In case you missed it, there's a new acronym for NTPC, National Transport, Power and Chemicals, or at least that's the vision. But let me then turn to Mr. Naguri, based on what Mr. Singh was just saying, that ultimately there is still this worry about intermittency. So whether you use pumped hydro, you use hydrogen, you need battery storage. But again, the role of grids and smarter grids comes in. And you heard the minister also talk about, more integrated grids. And you heard the ambassador from France talking about one sun, one world, one grid under the ISA's rubric. So what role does Hitachi ABB Power Grids see in these new areas of kind of integration and making that easier or more reliable?
Yeah, thank you, Arnav. Once again, a very, very good question. At Hitachi ABB Power Grids, we basically believe in stakeholders capitalism. The idea that corporations have responsibility that extend to include societies, communities, and employees. So sustainable development goals are part of our growth strategy. And we have ourselves set short-term, medium-term, and long-term targets as we adopt a three-dimensional approach to decarbonization of the entire value chain. So we want to be, and recently we announced our carbon neutral strategy as a company, Hitachi ABB Power Grids, that we want to be carbon neutral by 2030 in our own operations. So what we said our first short-term goal that we want to be achieving 100% fossil-free electricity consumption in all of our facilities, whether it is the factories, offices, and project sites by this fiscal year. So that is a very ambitious target we set ourselves because we are the technology provider. We are in the midst of an energy transition. So we ourselves need to take that challenge and implement in that. So we are working on that. And the second medium term is that we would like to focus on reducing the carbon footprint of our products. So we use a lot of our products like GIS, etc., with the SF6 gas, which is a highly, not a greenhouse gases in that. We recently launched our new technology, high voltage solution called Econic, which is a game-changing technology as an alternative to sulfur hexafluoride in that. So that's the second one. And the third one is, in the long term, we would like to impact society by helping decarbonize industries, transportation, and data centers. If I can sum it up, three things we would like to do that. First one is our technology, be it the product, systems, services, and software, enabling an accelerated shift from a fossil power to the more renewable-based generation. And the second one is a growing electrification of transportation, building, and industries. And the third one is rising sustainable energy carriers, as we talked about green hydrogen.
Again, a very clear agenda. So let me turn then to Amazon, Chris. You have set out a very bold agenda of wanting to become net zero carbon by 2040 as a company. So you talked a lot about in your initial intervention about the electrification of the fleet vehicles. But what else would Amazon be doing en route to that? And because you work with so many millions of partners in your business, what would you do to encourage more moves towards the energy transition across the businesses that you work with?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for framing that way with regards to partnership. When we actually launched our commitment to be net zero carbon by 2040 under what we call the climate pledge, it actually was not just a goal or a commitment for Amazon. It was a call to action for partners and other signatories to join us. And so since that announcement in late 2019, we now have over 100 signatories to the climate pledge that are joining us in this journey to net zero carbon by 2040. And really exciting to see some of the partnerships and innovations that have come out of that collaboration to date. But since you asked about renewable energy and already mentioned a little bit about our logistics commitments, obviously these long-term kind of North Star goals are only as good as the plans and the credible kind of steps that each of us take to move toward that. And so with renewable energy in particular, we are very proud that we're now the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy in the world. We've committed to over 230 renewable energy projects representing 10 gigawatts of capacity to date. That's split between over 80 large utility scale wind and solar projects, as well as nearly 150 rooftop solar systems to power operations, including over a dozen in India that help our fulfillment centers deliver customer packages that are powered by renewable energy. So we're really excited and proud of that work that we've done today on the renewable energy front. But I think, as you mentioned earlier, it doesn't start with your energy supply. The energy efficiency and innovation work to actually reduce your electricity use and energy use in general is key. And so I don't want to skip over that. Our data center regions, for example, in Mumbai, that's been operational since 2016, and new regions coming online to complement our corporate offices and investments in fulfillment in India, all have renewable energy kind of as a secondary measure behind how we design and operate our facilities with the most efficient infrastructure possible. We're really excited about the work we're doing inside our four walls, but I think to your point, the opportunity we have to scale action outside of our four walls in partnership with our supply chain customers and like-minded companies as part of the climate pledge is what really gets us excited.
Mr. Nair, Chris just talked about, a lot of rooftop and distributed energy deployment that Amazon has in its facilities. Now, the Cochin International Airport was the first of its kind in the world to be fully powered by renewables. And not all of it just came from the grid. There's a lot of it that you deployed on your own site. So I have a very simple question for you. What is your plan to take the Cochin International Airport to other airports across India and thousands of others across the world? What can they learn from you?
Yes, Ranabha, I think as you mentioned, Cochin International Airport is the first airport fully powered by the solar energy since 2015. And with that, UN has been awarded the great award of Champion of the Earth Award to Cochin International Airport 2018 also. So we have been augmented our solar capacity, and now the installed capacity is 40 megawatt. And another further 12 megawatt solar installations are in progress, and it should be just going to be commissioned. And in addition, we have a small hydro project of 5 megawatt is under construction. And also, we are in discussion with some of the companies to have a joint venture to produce green hydrogen into our premises for using for vehicles and all. But even our own plant, the total production in the 2021 was 45 million units of energy, and the carbon emission compensated is around 30,000 tons. The life of the solar panel is expected for 25 years, and total carbon emission is compensated to be around 1 million tons for 25 years of this 40. But as you asked, is a real question, as Mr. Chris was mentioning, we also have the rooftop also, the solar has been installed in rooftop, some of the buildings. And one of the main peculiar thing is we have a carport. That means the car park installed with the solar on the top, and car will be parking on the ground, and both the terminals, so that is domestic and international terminal, have a 2,400 car park, which is totally covered by the solar, and we are producing solar energy from that. And also we have provided some EV charging facility also for the vehicles which is coming and parking and during that time also. But your question on to that, how we have been helping or spreading our this idea to help others in that. We have some of the local small institutions are associating with us or asking our help for consultation to install their areas to have a small solar plants. And in our one of the big temple that is called Sabrimala, they also asked our help to have the solar plants for producing power for their utilization. And another question is 2019, due to the International Solar Alliance, there was a meeting in 2019, and 50 ambassadors from various countries visited India in participating in that meeting. They visited our solar installations, and they are very happy with that. And they asked us whether we can extend the help to their countries. And they told that because of the COVID, further progress, nothing has happened. But they told that this model can be adopted in their countries to generate power for their airport in their country. They told that these airports will be associating, or they will be in dialogue with us to help it. But because of the COVID, nothing has happened. But we are ready to help. And moreover, we also know that Government of India modeled us and asked all other airports to have installation, solar installation maximum to produce solar energy for their users. Most of the airports are in dialogue with us, or some of them are visited our plant, and we are helping. Actually, our motto is that wherever who are asking help from us for generating the renewable energy idea, we are extending our help maximum to them, so that our motto is that we have to save our country, or not only the world, from the carbon emissions, and to protect our earth from the further the pollution of because of the carbon emission. That is our motto. We are always there with anybody and everybody those are asking our.
That's very inspirational. Thank you, Mr. Nair. So we are well over our time, and we have to close. But before that, I would request your indulgence with just a 10 to 15 second answer, and request all of you to answer this one question which really popped up for me. And I'm going to read it out. This is Stuti. She says, I am Stuti. I'm a 14-year-old from Karnataka. When I come to your age, what would be the most likely type of energy I will be using? Now, you don't have to tell me what your age is, but please calculate. She's 14. And please give me a 10 to 15-second answer. What is the most likely type of energy that Stuti is likely to be using in the coming decades? Let me start with you, Chris.
I would say X, and that X represents the innovation work and the education learning that you're going to provide and done for us. So I'm really excited to see what your generation brings to the table, and I want to leave that blank for you to fill in through your education. So thanks for that question.
Stuti, the future rests on your shoulders. Mr. Nuguri, you.
No, I strongly believe that we are creating the world not only for our generation, but the generations to come back in a more sustainable manner. And she's going to be using the more greener, and she's going to live and use all the greener platforms.
Mr. Nair.
I think I've seen that Sudhi's question, and I was just thinking on to that. Actually, what I feel is that when she's coming to our age, she may be using hydrogen for instead of fossil fuel for vehicles, and the green energy like solar or something for powering their the houses and or for powering for lighting and other applications.
Mr. Singh.
Yeah, I think we all know that primary source of energy for the universe is the solar. And I'm sure that the technological development will make sure that we are efficiently and economically we can exploit this, maybe the whatever this hydrogen or anything, but that will be the secondary source. So I think that's what we will go back to our mythology.
Right.
Sun Devata.
Mr. Sinha. You're on mute. So.
Look, it's very hard to imagine, and without giving my age away, I'd like to say in a few decades, God alone knows what can happen. Perhaps we might be using gravitational energy for all we know. I think I'll combine my answer into what Chris said. The new generation has to figure it out, and what Gurdeep said, which is that ultimately solar is the fountainhead of all energy.
Indeed. Ms. Padamji, last word to you.
Yeah, Stuti, I think it's a great question, first of all. So probably renewables, hydrogen, and like both Sumant and Chris have said, technology is evolving so rapidly that who knows, I mean, in the next, 40 years, what this will be like.
Give it away. But thank you so much for all of you who've contributed so richly with your experiences. So many hundreds of you who've with your questions. I will go with Sumant and Chris and said, quote my Oxford professor, the most important energy you'll be using is brain power and how you think. So with that, I want to thank, but this is the time to hand over to Mr. Dinesh Jagdale. We talked so much about vision, execution, etc., but that doesn't happen unless you have driven, committed, supportive officials in the government. And Mr. Jagdale is exactly that kind of person. So it's been a long but exciting evening. Mr. Jagdale, over to you to close off the session.
Thank you, Dr. Anuva. And I think with such an enlightening leadership coming on the one single screen here, I think what else we could wanted, and followed by a 14-year-old question, which actually, triggered our minds. What is that would come a little later after a few years. But one thing is sure, I think whatever energy Stuti is going to use, I'm sure it will be clean and it will be green. And obviously it is Stuti and so many of Stutis who are going to develop and bring the world away from all the fossil fuels. With this, I would like to thank Honorable Minister Shri R. Rajkumar Singh for sharing his key insights on India's energy transition and reminding that it is not just energy transition, but a complete transformation of our India's energy sector. With his consent, the India Story booklet, which we had prepared, compiling with the wider ideas that have come across for the last 2 decades, and the energy transition website that will be live from now, I'm sure all the audiences will take an advantage of this particular transition story. I would also like to thank Ms. Tracy Crow, Chief of Staff, SE for All, for communicating Ms. Damilula's message. We are grateful to Dr. Mathur for taking time out from his busy schedule and delivering thought-provoking address. We are also obliged to Mr. Krauset for his video address. I would like to thank Mr. Tirumurthy for his welcome remarks and also for all the support rendered by the Permanent Mission of India to the United Nations in organizing this event. Sir, we will continue to collaborate closely with your team till the United Nations High-Level Dialogue on 20th of September 2021. I would like to thank Secretary MNRE for his kind words in setting the context for the event so aptly. And all the leaders here, I would like to thank the panelists, Mr. Gurdeep Singh, Mr. Meher Padamji, Mr. Suman Sinha, Mr. Chris Rowe, Mr. Venu Nuguri, and Mr. S.C.K. Nair for the vibrant and very, very thought-provoking panel discussion. We are grateful to all of you for being a part of this event and for all the valuable insights on accelerating in the energy transition, your concerns, suggestions, ideas. We look forward to you for taking through and accelerating this agenda for India. I would also like to especially thank Team CEEW, our knowledge partner led by Dr. Ghosh, for their tireless efforts in bringing out the India Success Story booklet, the Energy Transition website, in organizing various events under the High-Level Dialogue Energy, including today's event. We thank Dr. Ghosh for moderating the panel discussion well, and my special thanks to Ms. Shuaraha also for her tireless efforts in the overall journey till date under the HLD 2021. Last but not the least, I see a number of audience panel and across the world who are still with us after almost 2 hours of discussions, who have joined us for this special event today. I'm sure all of you must have found the entire event very, very knowledgeable and insightful. Thank you for all joining this event. Please take care. It's a full moon day. Good night from India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Arnava, sir.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Venu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suvaji.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.